Hi, this is going to be a video response to Shoner. He recently made a video about his style when it comes to story in tabletop role-playing games. And remember, it is important to consider that the stories are not being told in tabletop role-playing games. They are created through the interactions of the player characters with the game world. When it comes to my style, and the link to Shoner's video will be in the description, when it comes to my style of story, I attempt to have no style. It's a bit like Jeet Kune Do, like Bruce Lee, his philosophy of not having a style. I prefer not to have a style because that way the players do not know what to expect. I think you become more predictable like that. Even if I am using a purchased module or creating my own adventures, etc., I want to make things as difficult as possible when it comes to the identification of some tropes and staples. It is not entirely possible. You do have like your pet peeves, but I attempt, when it comes to the story, to the flow of the session, I attempt to handle things like that with that unpredictability. When it comes to the stories of the player characters, rather the non-player characters, unless they are particularly tied to the most important parts of the adventure scenario, etc., I don't put too much emphasis on them. It's a good idea to have a few details so that the game, the world, feels real. But unless that particular non-player character is tied to one of the more important plots, then I usually do not focus too much on their personal background and such. I think that in a way, I follow Lovecraft's method of creating stories. When it comes to, yes, coming up with the main thing that is going on for the scenario, the adventure, etc., what sort of nefarious plans are happening, what's the big threat, all of that. Because if you read, I don't remember the name of the essay, but it was something written by Lovecraft. It was something like essay on supernatural horror or something, because I have it in Spanish. I don't remember the title in English, but in that essay Lovecraft instructs how you could create a horror story just based on his own methods. You take one major threat. For example, in Call of Cthulhu, or Cthulhu is like the major threat. Or perhaps you could say that it is related to the return of the Great Old Ones, or the Cthulhu cults. Once you have that established, you have that major threat, everything about your story can spin around or move towards that particular threat, or indicating, or the relationships, the connections between the characters, the events, the places, everything leads to that particular central focus, rather. It's like Rome. If you were to consider that threat as Rome, all roads, all paths lead towards Rome, but those paths can be quite different. Not all the paths and roads are the same. So, taking that into consideration, I think that despite my attempt of not having a particular story style in tabletop role-playing games, when coming up with ideas for scenarios, adventures, campaigns, and whatnot, I always consider that major threat. And I think many designers do this as well. Take a look at different modules, like the Temple of Elemental Evil. Well, in order to avoid spoilers, you have that major threat. You could say that it's the temple itself, and everything that happens in the module or the mini campaign, well, depending on how you play it, leads towards the reason for the temple existing and the threats that are contained within the temple. So you can come up with some very rich storylines based on that central theme, the main focus for the adventure, the scenario, and etc. So overall, I attempt to have no style. I do follow those guidelines, those Lovecraftian guidelines of having some sort of major threat, enemy, whatever, catastrophe, calamity at the center of things, and everything that you build, you could use that as the start, the launch pad to create all sorts of plot hooks, adventure seeds, non-player characters. How are they connected to that? Even the more normal non-player characters could have some sort of connection with the major thing that is going on. The focus, the threat, the calamity, the villain. The non-player character could be connected to that. And if you want to enrich or develop the personal background, the history of each of those non-player characters, think about how that non-player character is affected by that threat, that villain, that site, that anything. So those are my thoughts on my story style in tabletop role-playing games. I hope this video was informative and entertaining. As always, thank you for watching my videos, thank you for your likes and your comments. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. And remember, it is better to roleplay and fail in character than not to roleplay and fail as a player. Once again, thank you, and see you later.